again, and back to the south. The area served by the Southern States Mission of the 1870s quickly earned a reputation for violence and persecution. The 1879 murder of Southern States missionary Joseph Standing in Georgia confirmed the region's notoriety. Despite that, there have been few modern examinations of Elder Standing's death. Most link his murder to the virulent 19th-century anti-Mormonism that also cost the church its first prophet, as well as an enduring Southern tradition of extralegal violence. Thus, Standing's death resulted from Georgians' religious intolerance coupled with an abiding martial spirit that encouraged mob violence. Historians also point to Southern concerns with maintaining status, reputation, and order, which often dictated a violent response to those perceived as disrupting social norms. Or, it has been suggested, perhaps the frustrations and dislocations of the postbellum South encouraged a violent reaction against spiritual carpetbaggers. Scholars who noticed that Elder Standing met his death in Georgia's mountains also referred to a distinctive highland culture, isolated and fearful of outsiders, characterized by feuding, whitecapping, and collective violence of moonshiners against local informers and federal agents. In the quest to explain the persecution of Mormons as part of a larger pattern of Southern extralegal violence, all these explanations ring at least partially true. An acknowledgement of Georgia's violent past, however, does not mean that anti-Mormon violence, particularly Standing's murder, should be attributed to a general regional proclivity toward violence, as such treatments lack explanatory power. This book offers a different view, arguing that the mob violence against Standing was a local event, best understood at the local level. As the evidence confirms, the men who erupted in violent opposition to LDS missionaries were motivated by what they perceived as the negative impact of Mormon proselytizing on families and community. In this examination, Standing's murder becomes a tool to uncover the complex social relationships that linked North Georgians, families, kin, neighbors, and co-religionists, and to illuminate the ways in which mob violence attempted to resolve the psychological dissonance created by Mormon missionaries. In laying bare the bonds linking Georgia converts to the mob, this book reveals Standing's murder as more than simply mountain lawlessness or religious persecution. Rather, it is consequence of tensions resulting from separating converts from loved ones and dependents from heads of household. Initially, Southern saints fashioned a new Georgia community of like-minded believers. Ultimately, they transferred that community to Manassas, Colorado, answering the church's call to gather in the new Western Zion. It can be no coincidence that the men accused of Standing's murder were connected to converts who had left, or were preparing to leave, for the West. If this was, as it seems, a private mob, is it possible that family, or more precisely, the preservation of family, prompted the violent behavior of the mobbers? In 1879, Georgia newspapers suggested just such a motive. According to published reports, the people of North Georgia were determined not to submit to see Christians led astray and families broken up by Mormon missionaries. Another local newspaper justified the attack on Standing as a defense of household and womanhood, explaining that the good citizens of North Georgia could not stand any longer the bad influence that his preaching had upon the female portion of the neighborhood. It is true that conversion to the LDS Church in the 19th century often created distance, both religious and geographic, between neighbors and kin. The Mormon practice of plural marriage, or polygamy, also convinced unconverted Georgians that neighbors and loved ones had been seduced into a corrupt and licentious religion and invited suspicions that missionaries focused their efforts on North Georgia's women. Later, the Atlanta Constitution would attempt to reassure readers that only undesirable women left Georgia for the Mormon colony in the West. Readers should not be concerned about the losses, a reporter wrote, as the converts were mostly poor and shiftless folks, and generally past middle age. One or two pretty girls are known to have gone, but most of the women were old and ugly. While the loss of poor, old, and ugly women did not concern Atlanta residents overmuch.